Tom, break it down for us. How should kids play in the midst of COVID-19, or should they play?
They should play. I mean, physical activity is extremely important. We know the benefits of bodies in motion, right? Kids are 1/10 as likely to be obese. They're more likely to stay in school. They're more likely to have positive mental health outcomes, which is extremely important today. It's a way to work through anxiety issues.
Well, let's go to the big one, Tom. Let's go to high school football, and especially, I played in high school, was fortunate enough to get a scholarship and all that sort of thing. And I kind of put myself in this position, especially kids of color or kids with lower income. This is, unfortunately or fortunately, sometimes viewed as a way out. How are you thinking about that, or in the different seminars and things that you held? How are people talking about that to these communities?
Is it particularly communities of color or low-income communities? There are fewer sport options. It's not like you got 18 things to choose from. It's often football, basketball, maybe some baseball. So I think that's step number one. In recognition that football is one of the sports that can transmit the virus, as much or more than any other, just because of the piles and the huddles and the face-to-face contact and the locker rooms and otherwise. Are there alternate ways of playing that sport? Flag, for instance, which might minimize some of this stuff, or can you get kids into more training environments while we work through the toughest part of this pandemic? Can we push the actual games themselves to the winter or to the spring, which some states have?
So are you finding that there are, alternative ways to get scholarships? I mean, usually it would be fall Friday night lights, and coaches will see you from Nebraska or wherever else. They'll recruit you. That's not necessarily going to be the pattern. You're not necessarily going to be able to play on Friday nights. So you mentioned some alternatives. What other kinds of things have you done?
Well, you may not be able to play on Friday nights, but the supply of scholarships is not going away, right? I mean, it's not like, college football's decided to give out, 60% less, fewer scholarships next year. They're going to have to go to some kids. So the question is just how much game film and recent game film might you have in selling yourself? And are there alternate ways to do so? Can you get involved with camps, at these particular, how can you get on the radar of these coaches so they can make decisions? So in my mind, the only question is whether is the efficiency with which college coaches are going to be distributing the scholarships. Are they going to go to the right kids, or the very best kids?
The other big piece in this moment too, and I think about that if you don't have the Friday night games, or as a kid, if you're not able to go out and play with all these kids, in the park kind of randomly, that is more structured. What's the mental impact we're finding on kids with this change in play, this delay in play? Any big findings there?
Yeah, it's hard. There have been researchers out of the University of Wisconsin who've looked at this, and it's pretty significant. There's a higher levels of anxiety among athletes, more risk of mental health problems, and this is real. We need to treat this as a real thing, and schools need to as well. There's principals and the superintendents are so busy dealing with just getting their classes in order. Sports is not a priority right now to them. It's very easy to kind of put that on the back burner, but they need to recognize, and I think many of them do, at least intellectually, that part of educating the whole child is creating these physical and social and emotional experiences that allow the student to develop.
And who are you finding to be in charge of this decision, the play, don't play, how to play decision in the kids' orbit? Who's the final determinant? Who's the decider?
It's anybody and everybody, right? It's utter chaos out there. This COVID-19 has revealed fundamental flaws in sports governance in this country. We've always known they're there. People like myself and you have been following this for a while. We realize there's no minister of sports or department of sports at the federal level to coordinate sport activity. So and we see that now with COVID-19. Youth sports was the last institution in sport to shut down in March, after the pro leagues and after the NCAA. And then they were the first to start up back in early May. Like, let's start throwing travel tournaments in Missouri, and we'll ask people to wear masks a little bit. And next thing you know, they're spreading the disease and the virus, and they're being blamed for that. So, I mean, to me, one of the things that I hope comes out of this is the recognition that we need better governance in sports at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. How do we balance competing interests, not spreading the virus versus getting kids active? Who do we talk to? Right now, you got all these youth sport leagues that want to have their voice heard, but they don't know where to go to. They go to the state health department, but they're so busy with a million other things. They don't know sports often.
Tom, when this all began, just this last question, I think we all had this fantasy of sorts that there would be a chance to reset sport, that everything would shut down, and then we could start differently, that we will have a chance to have thought through this a little bit better. What would you like to see different on the other side? All vaccinated, all moved forward, all back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, what I would like to see is that sport is seen not as a nice to have, not as an extracurricular, not as, entertainment, but something that is actually core to solving many of the greatest challenges of our time, from racial equity to gender equity, to reducing healthcare costs, to addressing issues related to crime. I mean, all of these things we want to attack, and we recognize. We collectively in this country don't often think about sport as part of that solution or a key factor. But we know, but then we ask ourselves, we know what sport did for us as a kid, the kind of lessons we learned about resilience, about working with other people, about just developing healthy habits for life. And then intuitively it makes sense, but it's not being translated into policy, and it's not being baked into the ideas that are coming out of DC or out of state capitals. And that's what I would like to see, is that sport is taken seriously, really, for the first time. It's not seen as just something that happens over there. It's something we need to say, okay, what do we want to get out of sports in this country? What are the values?
Thanks for breaking it down for us on kids, sport, COVID-19, during and after. Where should we be with our kids? Thanks, Tom.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.